In early 1943, when heavy fighting was raging in North Africa, a middle-aged civilian boarded a long-haul transporter near London. The plane took off and headed for Algiers, where General Dwight Eisenhower's headquarters were located in the venerable St. George Hotel. The civilian had British documents in the name of Mr. Hornsby and was going to North Africa to organize leisure activities for British soldiers. In reality, Hornsby was just a pseudonym. The man's name was Solly Zuckerman, and he was a professor of medicine, respected in the scientific world for his research on captive monkeys. Such unusual experiences were to help him in the unprecedented mission he was sent on. He was instructed to create a plan that would allow the English and Americans to conquer the small but strategically important island of Pantelleria solely through bombing. Pantelleria is located in the Mediterranean Sea, about 110 kilometers southeast of Mazzara del Vallo in Sicily and about 90 kilometers east of Cape Mustafa in Tunisia. In the mid-1920s, the island was turned into a fortress by the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini and closed to foreigners. Allied intelligence therefore gathered information about its defense capabilities. An Allied reconnaissance plane discovered that Pantelleria had more than 100 gun emplacements, many carved into solid rock, with ammunition caches, machine gun nests and other defensive features. Hundreds of tall, thick stone walls divided the plowed land into fields, which were excellent defensive positions for 10,000 Italian soldiers defending the rocky, mountainous island measuring 8 by 11 kilometers. Mussolini boasted that thanks to him, Pantelleria was impregnable. The Allied strategists feared that the Italian leader's boasts were true. General Eisenhower and his staff knew that the island had to be taken so that the British and Americans could invade Sicily in the first days of July 1943. The German radar station Freya on Pantelleria prevented an unexpected attack on Sicily. Moreover, once the Allies had conquered Sicily, warplanes from Pantelleria could have threatened the island's shipping lines. The island was also a refueling point for German U-boats and torpedo boats operating in the central Mediterranean. Any attempt to land on Pantelleria from the sea could have cost the Allies hundreds, perhaps thousands, of casualties. The island's coastline is irregular, with steep cliffs, almost devoid of beaches. The only suitable landing site, in the port of Porto di Pantelleria, was not very suitable for a sea attack. Only flat-bottomed boats could be used here. The insidious current from the land to the sea and high coastal waves further complicated the operation. Despite the impressive fortifications, Italian propaganda specialists called Pantelleria the Gibraltar of the central Mediterranean. The garrison consisted of a mixture of people pulled from various army units. None of them had participated in battle, and their morale was considered low. In fact, they felt isolated and believed they would be left to the mercy of the enemy if necessary. Considering all factors, General Eisenhower decided to conduct a kind of laboratory experiment to see if concentrated mass bombing would influence Pantelleria's surrender. He therefore ordered his subordinate, the Commander-in-Chief of the British Air Force, Marshal Arthur Tedder, to use all medium and heavy Allied bombers in the Mediterranean area. The intensive bombing campaign was codenamed Corkscrew. Solly Zuckerman's secret task in Algiers was to create a scientific plan for the bombing that would lead to the surrender of the Italian garrison without the need for a sea invasion. Every detail of the photographs taken by reconnaissance planes and information obtained from other intelligence sources regarding Pantelleria's defense facilities was taken into account. There were 109 cannons of various calibers on the island. It was this potentially destructive weapon that was to become Zuckerman's main target. At the headquarters in Algiers, Zuckerman became known as the Mystery Man, one of those who are always involved in some unknown task and who work with the bigwigs. His activities were shrouded in mystery. One could guess endlessly what he was currently doing. When the scientist finished his report, the document with charts, maps and illustrations had 283 pages. Zuckerman pointed out that trying to direct bombs directly at each of the big guns on Pantelleria could mean unnecessarily prolonging and increasing the effort. The defense can be neutralized by disrupting communications and eliminating rangefinders, anti-aircraft gun spotters, searchlights, observation posts, ammunition depots, roads, barracks, shelters, and cutting off food and water supplies. The bombs will not only destroy the gun emplacements, they will also demoralize, and demoralization can play a big role in silencing the batteries, Zuckerman emphasized. No one knew if the scientifically devised bombing plan would work. D-Day, the start of the invasion of Pantelleria from the sea, was set for June 11, 1943. Meanwhile, the American and British Air Forces, following Zuckerman's detailed instructions, dropped more than 14,000 bombs on the batteries on Pantelleria. 80 guns were bombed, 43 were damaged, 10 of which were beyond repair. As predicted by the mysterious man, all communication was destroyed, as were ammunition depots, bunkers and other important elements of the defense system. Despite accurate targeting, almost half of the cannons were still operational. However, as Zuckerman concluded based on previous studies of the effect of bomb explosions, it was not necessary to hit the artillery positions directly. It was the force of the explosive charges that affected the auxiliary equipment and Italian soldiers, causing the batteries to fall silent. After Pantelleria had been bombed, the commander of the British Fleet Battle Group, consisting of 5 cruisers and 8 destroyers, demanded the island surrender. Vice Admiral Gino Pavesi, who was in charge of Pantelleria, reported to Rome, "The Allied bombs are raining down on the island in a hurricane of fire and smoke. The situation is critical. All means of effective defense have been exhausted." At 10 o'clock on the morning of D-Day, Major General W.E. Clutterbuck's men of the British 1st Infantry Division climbed the rails of the transport ship 10 kilometers from the coast and boarded the assault boats. When the first invasion troops approached the beach at Porto di Pantelleria, where they were to land, the astonished British soldiers saw hundreds of white flags flying over the island. Taking advantage of the situation, the troops went ashore and 11,000 stunned and confused Italian soldiers were herded into one place. The only casualty on the British side was a private who was kicked by a frisky donkey.